Cheers to a year and hopefully many more. Hello friends, today's video is really exciting because I have just passed the 1-year anniversary of my YouTube channel, which I cannot actually believe. It's wild to me. I am actually recording this on my actual anniversary day, so it is Monday the 24th. I'm celebrating with a little bit of wine, a little bit of Pinot Grigio, drink responsibly, friends. So I'm going to be answering the questions that you left on my last YouTube video as well as on my Instagram story. So let's just dive right in. I'm really excited to answer these questions and let's get into it. My first question is, what's the most important lesson learned studying writing at uni / the lesson that stuck with you the most? The most important lesson I think I learned in university is to write outside of the genre that you are comfortable in. So in my 3rd year, I took a nonfiction writing class, which was actually pretty amazing. I really enjoyed that class, even though the professor, I think, was not the best, but you make the most of what you got. But one of the things that I learned in that class was that each of us has our own perspective that we look at the world through. That's what makes memoirs so interesting, because each of us would see details and each of us would tell the same story in different ways based on our own perspectives. And I think that's really important to keep in mind, especially when it comes to point of view characters. So what I really took away from that class, and that the lesson that I've learned, is that each character has their own unique perspective, and that you should really be, or I guess I should really be, focusing on what makes that voice unique. Is there aspects of it that they will notice that someone else won't? And I really hadn't learned that before. I hadn't really considered that. The best example that I can give is actually an exercise that she gave us while we were in class, and that was to pick out 3 details in this room and describe them how you want. Describe them in any way. Seems pretty simple and straightforward. However, each person picked a different detail from the room, and no one's 3 details were exactly the same. And even if you did have something in common with someone else, you described it in a completely different way than they did. So that was something that was really helpful for me, and something that I like to keep in mind, especially as I'm writing, of, is this really something that the character would notice, or is it something that I would notice? And how closely related is what I would notice to what they would notice, and how can I change that to maybe reflect a little bit better of the character's personality that I've come up with? That was probably one of my biggest uni lessons that I've come up with. I have a ton more, I'm sure. My university experience was really great, and I really learned a lot in my university. When did you realize you first wanted to become a writer? I've pretty much known that I've wanted to be a writer since I was about 8 or 9. We had a really old desktop computer that was put into my room when I was about 8 or 9, and it didn't have the internet. It only had the capabilities of running the computer games we had at the time. Rest in peace, those games. Gosh, I would kill to play those games. Myst? Who remembers Myst? Anyway, not the point of the story, but essentially all it had on it was iTunes, the capability to run those games, and Microsoft Word. And so I started writing these stories. I started writing vampire stories because I was obsessed with Twilight at the time. Yeah, I've pretty much known since then that I would love to be a writer. The time that I made the conscious decision to pursue being a writer full time is actually in college. In college, I was originally a history education major, so I was going to be in training to become a social studies teacher. However, I realized I would hate that and switched majors and had a major panic end of my freshman fall semester, and I changed to English because I had a really great English teacher that kind of encouraged me to rediscover my love of writing and reading and literary analysis, and so I changed, and now the rest is history. If you could tell your younger writer self anything, what would it be? My younger writer self was the kind of person who really hid the fact that she enjoyed writing, and I think my advice would be to embrace this portion of you, and to embrace the writing, and to not be afraid to commit to writing a story. I didn't actually complete a manuscript until 2020. And I think a lot of that is down to my own insecurities about my own writing and my own process, and the fact that I thought it should be much better than it is in the comparison game. And I think a lot of that stemmed from my very early experiences on the internet as a writer and getting way too much feedback, because I was on Figment for a really long time, and there was a review function, and people would, you'd leave reviews and people would review you back and stuff. Nothing was ever malicious, but I think a lot of times if you get reviews too early or you get feedback too early, it can discourage you from continuing on in the writing journey. And for that book, a lot of books were left unfinished and a lot of stories were left untold, and I think I would go back and tell my younger writer self to, I know it's hard, but to not worry so much about the fact that this draft might not be perfect. I think I would just encourage my younger self to be kinder to my writing and to believe a little bit more in yourself, because there are so many people in this world who just want to tear you the down, and you know what? F those people. That's what I would have told her. What is your most controversial writing opinion? Oh boy. Ooh, spicy. My controversial writing opinion comes with a massive caveat, which I will get into after I talk about it a little bit, and I will acknowledge, so please don't go to the comments and immediately roast me when you hear it. I don't think craft books are particularly helpful or good. Whew. It's a hot take. I would just leave it like that if it was no nuance November. However, it's May, so I will give you a little bit of nuance and a little bit of my reasoning for why I hate craft books. For me personally, I just find that craft books are a little bit too general for where I'm at. I think everyone is different and everyone's writing process is different, and while I'm not necessarily hating on other people using craft books, I sometimes wonder if for some people they rely on craft books and thinking they need to get a certain point of knowledge before they can write a book, when in my opinion the best way to write a book and to learn how to write a book is to write a book. However, here is my caveat. I understand that I'm really privileged and really lucky and really blessed to have been able to go to university and study writing, and I am really lucky that I got to spend a lot of my youth writing and that I wasn't discouraged from a really young age and that I didn't have to really fight for my ability and my opportunities to go to writing school and to learn how to write and to continue to write on my own time. So I understand that craft books are a really great way for people who haven't had the advantages that I've had to understand writing craft better. But as someone who has gone to university and has really learned more about craft from writing in university as opposed to like the actual classes, like my actual classes, the classes I learned the most from were the ones that had writing exercises and didn't necessarily try to teach you stuff out of a book. For me and my learning style, I know that I am someone who dislikes craft books and does not find much value in them for myself. I think they can be a good tool for others to use. However, I do wonder for some people if they become a crutch that people can lean on and be like, oh, well, I haven't read this and this and this craft book, so like I can't write a book yet, like I'm not ready, I don't know these things. And really the only way you're ever going to learn these things is by doing them. And that's that's my biggest controversial writing opinion. But again, that's just for me personally. Like everything I say, take it with a grain of salt and know that that is my process and not necessarily yours. I am completely fine with craft books. You know, if you love craft books and you want to read them and they're helpful to you, I'm so glad. They're just not helpful to me, and I don't really like craft books. So, what are your favorite tropes? I have so many tropes that I love. Gosh, I love found family. Found family is my favorite trope of all time. If it has found family, I'm guaranteed to read it. I really love the snowed-in trope, or there was only one bed trope. I love the soulmate AUs. I love arranged marriages. I love forced marriages. I love bachelorette type things. I guess my favorite, if I had to pick an ultimate favorite, besides found family, because that is my ultimate favorite, but I think adjacent to that is in romance, or when you're having a romantic plotline or subplot, is when the grumpy one is soft for the sunshine one. Be still, my beating heart. Perfect. Perfect. And here's another free controversial writing opinion for you. I don't like enemies to lovers. I really don't. There's only been one enemies to lovers that I've really loved in all of my years of consuming media. And that is these two. You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong? No, I'm not. Prosecution rests. This might be my favorite question I think I've ever been asked. And I've thought about this a lot. The troublemakers go to battle. Who wins? Now, I have several theories. First of all, I don't think it'll be Wallace, because my money is either on Stieg or myself, and I will tell you why. I did jujitsu in college, and while I don't do it anymore, I do think I would have an advantage in that area. I'm also a really tall bitch, which is why I did pick Stieg, and I think ultimately it would be Stieg because he is 6'3" and towers over all of us. But I would not put it past Devesha to play dirty and somehow whip all of our asses. So I guess my answer is everyone except Wallace. But Wallace would dropkick a child and someone elderly. So you know what? Who really knows? I think it'll depend on the day and if I really do remember my jiu-jitsu training. To continue on the trouble train, I had two other troublemaker questions. They are both the same, essentially. Who is your favorite troublemaker to stream with? Is one of them. And who is your favorite troublemaker and why is it Wallissimo? I kid you not, that is what the question said. I'm gonna let you figure out who asked that. My favorite troublemaker to stream with is myself, obviously, and TomTom and Gooptress. Gooptress is, you know what? I take it back. Gooptress wins the battle. Paddleboarding woman, she would kick our asses. But my favorite troublemaker, you guys who come to our streams. Oh, look at that. All mushy, gushy. All right, moving on. If you had the opportunity to live anywhere in the world for a year while writing a book that took place in the same setting, where would you choose? This question is so good. I was thinking over these questions before I started. I was torn between two places. Actually 3, but I've narrowed it down to 2. My first choice, and the one that I'm actually going to go for this question, is Pamplona. Pamplona, Spain is one of my favorite places in the entire universe. It might be my favorite city. If I could live there, I would. I would love to move to Pamplona. It's gorgeous there. It's the energy and the vibes of Pamplona are immaculate. Perfection. But that is where I would pick. I'd love to write something in Pamplona. I'd love to write like a whirlwind, you know, mystery romance, or a literary fiction novel, or something to do with Ernest Hemingway. That's another little known fact about me. I actually really like Ernest Hemingway. And Ernest Hemingway spent a lot of time in Pamplona. My 2 runner-up choices are Rome, Italy, because Rome, Italy is perfection. I love that place. Not nearly as much as Pamplona, but I did really love Rome. And my second one would be Prague. I've never been to Prague, but it is gorgeous there from what I've seen of the pictures. If you rewrote a fairy tale, which one would it be, and what aspect of the tale would you focus on? I don't think this is a fairy tale, but I'm gonna pick it anyway, because I would love to see this redone. It's my favorite Disney movie. I don't care what anyone says. And that is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. What I really love about the Disney version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame is this interplay between religious politics and then the interpersonal conflict between a really shitty priest, essentially, and his own relationship with religion and sexuality and disability, and how all of those kind of interplay really interestingly in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I think those undertones and currents are really evident in the original movie, and I think that's what I would focus on. I think I'd like to do a gender bent one with like not having Esmeralda end up with the one guy who I love. I love him. I forget what his name is, but I love him, this guy. But I think it just would be a lot better if she ended up with Quasimodo. Just saying, because, you know, disabled people can be sexy. Just saying. An aspect that I really love exploring in my own works is religion and the interplay of religion with politics, geopolitics, all those kinds of things. And that interplay has always fascinated me, and it's something that I carry through with my own works. The Wrath King has a lot of religious overtones. I just really like talking about religion and the way that religion intertwines with our society, and kind of the way that it uses, I mean, honestly, the way that a lot of men use it to control people, and specifically women. It's not tea, but spilling it anyway. The thing is, the actual fairy tale that I would pick has already been redone in the way that I want it to be redone, and that's Hoodwinked. I love Hoodwinked. It is one of my favorite films. It's so good. Little Red Riding Hood, the big bad wolf being this investigative guy, grandma being this extreme sports skier. Like, it's just the way it weaves together. Man, I wish I wrote Hoodwinked. What's your favorite writing drink or snack? Coffee, or a soda beverage, not sponsored by Coca-Cola, even though I wish. Wow, I really wish. Love Coca-Cola. I even have earrings. I don't really eat while I'm writing. To fuel up, though, I love Luna bars. I'm obsessed with the peanut butter and chocolate mashup Luna bar. Sheer perfection. And those are definitely my favorite thing to eat before I start writing. That's what I would have. I was taking one full day off of writing each week. Been treating you. Thank you for asking. It's been okay. Not the best, but you know, it's difficult for me. I took off Saturday this most recent week, and I really didn't know what to do with myself. I kind of just like laid around and did nothing, which I guess is like the entire point. But I also really felt really bad because I was like, I am slacking. I'm being terrible. I should be working. But I know that's the entire point of taking a day off of writing. So, you know, it's difficult at the best of times. Like I said, I don't do much besides writing, so cheers to that one. No, I think it's been much better for my mental health to be taking days off, and, you know, even though it's difficult, I know it's good for me, just like medicine, you know, I just gotta do it. Being a workaholic is... it's a hard habit to break, especially after I went ham in university. My next question, are there any genres you don't think you'll ever write, and why do you think that is? Yes. I think the one genre that I will never write is probably contemporary. I am not interested in contemporary in the slightest. I don't read contemporary. I'm not drawn to contemporary. I read maybe one contemporary a year if I managed to get that far into my TBR. I think the last contemporary I read was probably like a Sarah Dessen book or a Morgan Matson book like years and years ago. The main reason is just I'm not very drawn to traditional contemporary or like contemporary romance or YA contemporary. I guess I would maybe write like a lit fic drama maybe at some point. But I'm just more drawn to fantastical worlds, and I find that the plots that I come up with in my head for those are much more intriguing and compelling to me. And considering I don't even read the genre really at all, I don't know the conventions of the genre, and I just personally don't find myself drawn to it. It kind of depends on the subject, of course. I have kind of floated around maybe like an alternate history kind of contemporary, where if the Romanovs had survived the Bolshevik Revolution, what would it be like? That would take a lot of research. A lot of research. So that's going to be my magnum opus one day. Just kidding. Probably not, but you know, it's a thought I had. And even then, I don't know if you'd even call it contemporary, because like, is it actually contemporary? Is it historical? Is it alternate historical? Is it like dystopian? Like, I don't know. But, I mean, never say never, but I don't plan on writing any contemporaries. Strictly contemporary. I would write like a thriller or a mystery, which I guess is technically set in a contemporary world, but contemporary itself, not my jam. Have you ever considered using a pen name? And I'm actually going to be using a pen name, so yes, I don't know what pen name yet, but you know, at some point. The reason for it, just to give a quick reason why, because I think my reason is really practical. It's not because I hate my name or anything, but my last name is somewhat hard to pronounce and it's really long and easily misspelled. I just kind of want an easier last name that will maybe get me some better shelf prospects and people will be able to find me a lot easier if my last name isn't impossible to pronounce and spell. So that's the only reason why. Who is your favorite author? My favorite author is V.E. Schwab. Vicious is one of my favorite books of all time. I have reread it probably a dozen times. I know that story inside and out. Darker Shades of Magic is a great place for fantasy readers to start with V.E. Schwab, but I've read all of her books except for The Archived, I think is what it's called, and The Near Witch, but The Near Witch is on my TBR and I will hopefully be getting to it soon. But yes, Victoria Schwab is my favorite author. What do you do when you're not writing? Sleeping? Playing with my dogs, baking. I love to bake. When I'm not writing, I read, I watch YouTube, I hang out with my dogs, I watch movies. I just consume a lot of content in general. I love to take baths. I'm a bath taker. That wasn't the question, but I do that. So those are the things I do. I'm really boring, y'all. Writing is all I do. You know, it's my passion in life. It's the thing that I love doing the most. How do you celebrate reaching milestones? Ooh, this is another thing I'm really bad at. Usually I don't really celebrate milestones. And I don't say this to be that bitch who's like,
oh, I just keep on going, you know, I'm just, you know, milestones, I don't need them to be continuing on.
I think the reward and the celebration for the milestone is just like continuing to write, because I love writing so much.
Which, God, that sounds so fake coming out of my mouth.
I apologize if it does, if it sounds disingenuous, but whenever I finish a book, I feel this incredible drop, and it's like really like this downhill slide that I fall in for a while because I now don't have this story that I love working on to work on every single day, and that's kind of hard for me because I'm always wanting to write and I'm always wanting to engage in writing and, you know, do things that are writing adjacent, even, you know, thinking, making mood boards, outlining, plotting, brainstorming, you know, all those things. But I think I'm just really bad at celebrating. I'm not a very celebratory person. I mean, I graduated college and the first thing I did was go downstairs and make myself lunch. But like with a COVID graduation and like graduating college, like when COVID was happening, like, or is happening still, wear a mask, people. It's hard to celebrate, but not really the celebrating type. I'm not really the celebrating type. Ooh. So if you have any suggestions, leave them down in the comments because I don't know how to celebrate. I'm bad at it. I guess getting a glass of wine and hanging out and chilling and watching a movie or something would be the closest thing I think I would get to a celebration. Would you rather vacation at the beach or the mountains? While I love both, I would have to say the beach because I love water and it is my dream My dream to have a beach house with a pool that I could just walk out onto the sand and walk out into the ocean and then come back and lay at the pool and write all day. That's my dream if I'm ever rich, which probably won't happen, but you know, a girl can dream. I do really love the mountains, so if I was super rich, I'd want a home in both. But to answer the question, I would rather vacation at the beach. And yeah, those were all the questions that I was asked for this Q&A. If you missed this Q&A, I will probably have one again next year. Celebrating 2 years on Authortube. This is my 119th video, and I cannot believe that we are here. I can't believe I've been so consistent with it. This has really been a testament to my own discipline, and I've been really enjoying it. I'm so glad that I made this decision. Thank you guys who have been here since the beginning. If you have just jumped aboard the trouble train and the, the struggle bus, I thank you so much for sticking with me, and thank you so much for all of your lovely support, your likes, your comments, your views, everything. If you're just hanging out and around, I really appreciate you and you being on my channel. This never gets any easier, but if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up down below. It really helps out my channel. And if you haven't already and you want to see more of my rambling face every single Thursday, you can subscribe down below as well. I make writing and book related content, and I talk a lot about writing craft and the things that I've learned and stuff like that. And occasionally I drink a lot of wine and rant about things. So cheers to a year and hopefully many more. I will see you guys next time. Bye.